So I went from passive reading to like locking myself in a room with no distractions. I'd put my phone away and I'd have a whiteboard and I'm just constantly like repetition after repetition, drawing out these pathways. Making flashcards has always been something that's been really helpful for me. Just because I think you need that repetition. Like, set that aside. If you got that wrong, I'm coming back to that in 5 minutes and I'm doing that card again. So that's kind of how I transition my learning over like the next 2 years of at least, textbook work.
Hmm. Did you do like, because I'm thinking about Nate's process. Nate scheduled it like, all right, from this time to this time. It was so like structured, like, and there was no, it was so disciplined, no misses, right? So Monday
Mhm.
he had study sessions, never missing. Tuesday study sessions, never missing, and he structured it that way. Where is that what was successful for you, or did you just like, I got to study all day, period, all day, every day?
I felt like that in the beginning, but once I kind of caught up on that biochem stuff, I definitely structured my days like that, where I would block off 3 to 4 hours just to study like physiology. I'd
Hmm.
take a 10-minute break to have a snack or do something. Then after that, the next 3 to 4 hours are for my next class. And then after that, my next class. And at the end, I would try to do like one big review of everything that I just learned.
Hmm.
And that's basically 7 days a week for 2 years.
Yeah. I remember like, I would, after every single exam that Nate had, pretty much every 2 3 weeks, I would go to see him in Lansing the day of the test. So like everybody's done with the test, so they don't have to study. So they'd go out and to the bars
Med
or
school
whatever.
Mondays, baby.
Yeah, med school Mondays. Nick was there for med school Mondays to see Nate pretty much consistently every week, every 2 weeks. And one thing that I thought was super interesting, because Nate was so structured and so disciplined in doing that stuff, he would tell me like, yeah, like most of the people here, and they would all like complain how hard the test was and all this other stuff. But they were also like doing the same thing that you did in undergrad, like cramming the night before, staying up all night on Red
Yeah.
Bulls and stuff like that. But Nate was just like, I already did all the work. Like I was disciplined. I didn't miss any days. I was structured. I put the time in so I didn't have to do that. And it was extremely successful for him being like the top percentile, like in the nation type crap. So like,
Hmm.
um, what I'm hearing from you is kind of the same thing where, all right, you got away with it in high school, right? You got away with it in
Yeah.
undergrad. But when you get into med school, it's like, all right, you got to have a plan, you got to be structured, and you have to be disciplined. No misses, pretty much. Because if you're starting to play behind, like you did in the first part, like
It's hard.
you're gonna be miserable.
Yeah. And I will say, like, dude, I became like, I guess I've never experienced depression up until that point. Like, I lost, like, I didn't communicate with friends. I didn't go out and work out. I didn't touch a basketball. Like, I didn't do anything but like sit in a room and study. And for, my advice to anyone who would go through this process or do that, I really changed to no matter what, I would take an hour or two out of my day to do something for me. And I think that's really important because you can really drive yourself into a hole like not doing that stuff.
Yeah, I remember they had a I think they in one of the first sessions in med school, they bring in someone to talk about, all right, if you're in a relationship, mm,
You're not going to be in a relationship.
yeah, like it was like pretty straight honest type stuff. Like if you got stuff in your closet before you go in here, and you need to get your stuff in order, long story short. Otherwise it's not going to work out. And
Yeah.
which, if you're in a relationship, it can work, but you got to have the right person, right? And I talked to Kevin last episode about it. um uh, is the person helping, solving problems, or are they creating problems? And you can't go in to something like a mission like you did with someone creating problems. You got to have someone
Yeah.
that's going to support you and solve problems. And I saw that definitely, like, with like med school people and stuff like that, that you really have to have all your ducks in a row when you go on this mission of discipline, and they have to be understanding, like, all right, med school comes first, I'm sorry, but this is what has to be done to be
Hmm.
successful, right? And there were so many people that I saw in Nate's class that, had the accolades, had the 4.0s going in, had the high test scores going in, all these stuff, didn't make it after, a year. Or they did get it, but after they were done, they didn't get matched. They did, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like they struggle, and you could just see all the tangible things of why it didn't work out. For them. They weren't as disciplined. They weren't this, they weren't that. And you and Nate are, I see you guys as like a prime example of, if you really want to be as successful as you possibly can, those are the things that you kind of have to do. So I look up to you guys a lot when it comes to that.
Appreciate it, man. Um, yeah, and I think I've always kind of held like that underdog mentality. Kind of going through med school, like um, I was like top fourth quintile in my class, like in the top 25%, but definitely not in the top 10%. So, and I I surrounded myself with people who were brilliant. Like a lot of my friends in med school are at really prestigious programs. They went into like orthopedics. My buddy Cooper is a savant, and so I really surrounded myself with people. And I think you can get caught up comparing yourself with people. Like, dang, I'm not as smart as that guy, or like he really understands the stuff and gets it easy. But that's just another thing where like I motivated myself more, and I think our whole friend group is probably our biggest self critics. But at
Hmm.
the same time, we surround ourselves with you, Nate, Kev. Like we don't surround ourselves with yes men, and I think we've always kind of pushed each other to be the best.
1000%, 1000%. Yeah. Like in the beginning of med school, everybody's get to know each other, right? You're getting to know each other, and then
Yeah.
you quickly find out who are the people that are there because their parents made a recommendation to somebody, or they have some political way in, or they're not really about it.
Hmm.
They're not really about it, and it makes me come up with a thought like, if you're thinking about going to med school, you got to be there for the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
All that struggle that you talked about, the depression, the no longer doing fun things for a long time, right? And only having 1 hour a day to yourself pretty much. Think about mentally how hard that is. And if you're
Yeah.
not there and you're not really about it and you're there for the wrong reasons because my parents want me to be there. My the money is sweet. Everybody else is going to think I'm cool. Like if you're there for those reasons, you're not going to be successful. And with me, you, and Nate, and the other people in our friends group, it's just like we're going to be successful. Whatever we have to do, we're going to be successful, right? And
Yeah.
once again, those things outside of what's on the paper is like so key, I feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, like once I got through so 2 years of how med school is kind of set up for people that don't know, the first 2 years is basically straight course book work, textbook work, taking exams, things like that. Third and fourth year is kind of set up where you go off to a base hospital or somewhere else and you're doing your clinical rotations, and that's touching on every specialty. So you will do like a month in OB, do a month in internal medicine, do a month in EM and things like that. And that's when you kind of decide like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? I think people, when they're like, "Oh, what's your residency?" and I tell them like emergency medicine, they're like, "Oh, are you going to be a surgeon?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to be an ER doctor." And there's pathways out of that where you can do fellowships and things like that. But um, so yeah, I decided kind of early on I was going to do emergency medicine. It felt like that was the right thing for me, my calling. I fit with that personality of those people, and then I'm out in Grand Rapids now at Spectrum Health, which was my number one program that I ranked, and obviously Nate went there as well, and I got to train with him for a year.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like the first 2 years is like the real grind, and then
Yeah,
year three is really the hands-on work. Year four, you're just like, all right, you know, I'm pretty locked in. I
coasting.
feel pretty good. I can do a little bit more, like I can go
Yeah.
play basketball. I can do some other things. And then after your 4 years, you're officially a doctor, but
Woo!
but you have to go do your, like, what do you call it? I know it's like rotations and stuff, but uh what's the next step after those 4 years?
Then it's your residency.
Yep, residency, and that's where you really get the hands-on, uh,
Yeah,
take what you
that's the
learned and apply it, right?
yeah the day to day training really, and the specialty you're going to be doing. There's still off service rotations that are applicable to your field, like for us as a ER doc or an ER resident, like I go rotate through anesthesia for intubations, and we do ICU months because obviously we deal with pretty sick critical people when they roll into the doors of emergency departments. So all
Mhm.
that stuff, but for the most part, I'm in the ER a lot of the time as my training.
Yeah. So that's how long usually is that second step, the residencies?
Yeah, for ER is one of the shorter ones. It's 3 years.
Mhm,
There are still some 4 year programs, but those are more academic centers like University of Michigan and kind of those big university
mhm,
training sites. But you can train for as long as you want. Like surgery, general surgery is 5 years. I think neurosurgery is like 7. So
mhm,
depending on what you do, the years can kind of be added on. But ER is kind of cool because there's a lot of fellowships, which is basically another year of training in another field where you can get board certified in that as well. So
yeah,
out of ER, you can do like sports medicine, you can do EMS, you can do like critical care medicine. So there's a lot of cool pathways out of ER, and I feel like I like my specialty a lot because I feel like I have a pretty broad knowledge base,
mhm,
and I feel like I'm very versatile. So
yeah. Um, what, what does I know that, Nate picked ER, emergency med as well because of the structure of work as well. There's a little bit
mhm.
more, um, work life balance. Was that part of the reason why you picked it?
Yeah, I think that was definitely huge. Like looking down, the road from this, I never really wanted to be on call and getting called in the hospital at like 2, 3 a.m. Luckily, I will never have to do that. I think the hard part about emergency medicine is that your shifts are always changing because it is truly shift work. So you can work
Mhm,
like a 7 a.m. shift one day, and then 2 days from that, you're working like a 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. shift. So
mhm,
your sleep cycle can kind of get messed up. But I mean, I work 8 hours in the ER, so
yeah,
it's it's basically work hard for 8 hours. You get to go home, and your work doesn't follow you.
yeah. That's definitely nice. Yeah, I always think about, you know, a lot of people have this idea of being a doctor, right? It's kind of one of those magical thoughts that everybody has, especially in like the US or anywhere, right? It's like
Yeah.
being a doctor is like a fairy tale, right? And it sounds sweet, right? But no one really knows, I feel, the nitty gritty of it all, and what it actually takes and what it actually means. Like people are just like, wow, he's a surgeon? Like, wow, he makes so much money. I want to do that too. She makes so much money. Wow, I want to do that too. But they work 24 hours a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they make a lot of money and stuff, but they have to go, 4 years undergrad, 4 years of med school, and then what, like 8 years of like
Yeah.
actual
Five,
stuff after that?
5 plus years.
Yeah, yeah, 5 plus years, so what's that? Almost 20 years of, like, school, and
Yeah.
then once you get out, like, yeah, you're making big bucks, but you're working 24-hour shifts how many times it's hard. It's not a fairy tale. It's yeah, there's some great perks to it, but you really have to
Yeah.
be bout it and really passionate about it. I think that's the biggest thing. If you don't get through all of those tough times and those tough steps without being passionate and truly
Hmm.
about it.